Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we're taking a look at Wolfenstein The Old Blood. Now honestly, this is probably one of the weirdest titles that I've revisited again with the new hardware, and honestly this has been a very interesting ride. So let's talk about requirements. Since the game is from 2015, requirements are very modest. The minimum GPU should be GeForce GTX 560 with a recommended GPU being GeForce GTX 660. And they want at least 3 gigabytes or more of video memory. So obviously we have 4070 Ti 95 96K, so that should not be the issue. However, the game itself is made in the Bethesda's ID Tech 5 engine, which runs on OpenGL rather than DirectX 9, 10, 11 or Vulkan APIs, which kind of introduces a certain bunch of problems. Number one, the game is actually rated as a game speed for 60 FPS. The game itself is capped at 60 FPS. You can remove this limit, but then all hell breaks loose, and that goes specifically for the options. So let's have a look at them. Obviously we're going with technically ultra, but in reality custom settings, and everything is kind of maxed out at this stage minus global illumination, because that setting keeps changing. We're going with the anti-aliasing 8 times, virtual texture ultra, compression disabled, maximum ppf 32, trilinear high, and everything else is as much as we can crank it all up, including subsurface scattering. So what this all gives you for 4K, I would want to say sub 60 performance. And honestly, if you are sub 60, the game is slow. If you're above 60, the game is super fast. There's almost no in between. So I would want to say the biggest problem for this game probably is the fact that it should be played at 60 frames capped, and if you're running a high refresh rate monitor, you will have to do a little bit of workarounds. Steam community page is a great source of all the tests and fixes people have provided over the years, so I would recommend going there. So for now, what we're gonna do is just start a new game, and we'll see how it goes. I already know the performance, and I've given up playing the game with uncapped frame rate. It's just to see how much we're gonna get out once we're in the location where we can utilize that. And yeah, the cutscenes are essentially at 30 frames, so we're just gonna skip forward the moment we can actually, and I'll show you a couple optimization tricks that really gives you all the FPS you can get, essentially at expense of your own sanity, so to say. So we can skip this and arrive with this dude to the castle Wolfenstein.
Pretty solid shoulders, Agent One.
Well, we're losing the bloody war.
Nobody told me.
HQ's put a tight lid on it.
So even now we're pulling 5 gigs of video memory, 8.5 of RAM, and we're kind of 40-ish frames. And this is one of the things when it comes to this particular game engine. If you max everything out, it kind of starts collapsing on itself a little bit. And it has very little to do with your hardware, surprisingly enough. When the game was capped at 60 frames, essentially out of the box experience, GPU usage was about 40%, CPU usage was about 30%, and everything was nice and stutter free essentially. But even now, like, even though the cutscenes and majority of the events that are kind of like cinematic events, they usually will drop under 60 frames as far as I read on Steam essentially, but I'll show you what happens when you uncap it. And oh my god, I must say this game should have, if not a remaster, then at least a patch. Perhaps there is a mod that essentially allows you to have a higher frame rate and keeps the engine in check so it doesn't actually tick over. But overall, yeah, you'll see what I mean, because as I said, this is one of those weird games. I never had an idea that this is happening until I essentially replay it now, and yeah, I never had this issue before, honestly, but you'll see what I mean. So let's take the papers, enjoy the low frame rates while you still can. We're about to light this candle and you'll see what's gonna happen.
Stay focused, stay quiet, and follow me, right?
Commandant France, Aus Frankfurt, Guten Morgen, Guten Morgen. Fuck it.
So yeah, as you can see now, we're at 38, 37, 5-ish frames, 29 up to 30 milliseconds, and at least the walking speed and everything game-wise is okay. So if we go into the options, and I'm gonna walk you through what needs to be done. Number one, which is the biggest tank for FPS, is anti-aliasing. So we're gonna take it off. Second of all is virtual texture compression. Apparently this setting, when enabled, will allow you to actually not have the textures popping in and out in the distance, which is really annoying if you try to enjoy the scenery. For the virtual texture maximum page per frame, we want to be at 16. And at this point, these are the only settings that you kind of need to touch just to get stable 60. Like, no matter what happens on screen, you're probably going to be always hitting 60, even in 4K. So if I press apply, just observe. So here we are instantly with these settings adjusted, 170 frames. There are some things we can disable more, but the problem starts with the game speed. Like, this is honestly unplayable. As much as it seems as fun, this is not how the game should be, because when these enemies start running around, they run triple the speed. And the same goes for your own movement. So if you're trying to get anywhere near to do an objective or listen to a cinematic, you're skipping dialogue, you're not hearing it. And most iconic meme cinematics essentially are ruined. So yeah, essentially this is at 200 frames. Now granted, I have forcefully disabled vertical sync using NVIDIA control panel, which probably is not a good idea. But if I'm gonna be playing this game, which I might, I will be reverting back to the original settings, because this is just painful to begin with. So here's the infamous scene about the Frankfurt, and just look how quickly it all happens. Yeah, I've got Papiers.
Ja, ein...
So yeah, as you can see, this is what happens here. On the bright side, with the high frame rate, this trolley ride will actually, instead of taking 2 minutes 35 seconds, it's gonna take about 30. So, you know, I guess that's what we get. But as you can see, like, the whole conversation is just, the game engine is not meant to be run above 60 frames, which breaks all the timings and everything else imaginable. Now, if you're playing on a easiest difficulty, as I usually do, just to relax, probably it's not going to be a big problem for you and you will get used to it. If you're playing on Mein Leben or Uber difficulties, then I do believe it will require you a little bit of getting used to. But then again, you know, I know you guys esports ready ones, you're just ready for this any time of the day. But yeah, in general, I honestly, I'm all about high frame rates when it comes to gaming, but when the frame rate is actually impacting your ability to play the game, that's where I'm calling it quits. So I think you kind of get the idea why extreme frame rate is not meant for this game. Like, this is your life if you do it, which you might think is funny, and it probably is, but oh, look at this, Bethesda's secret. We might as well just grab it because we need all the armor for the upcoming fight, because it's gonna be extra challenging, not because the enemies do damage, that would be the easy part. The problem is their movement speed is gonna be so damn quick that we kind of need to get everything we can. So
Pathfinder calling. Lance here, we can't.
Pathfinder, I have new information.
Roger.
So yeah, that's kind of the problem here with the high frame rate, because the combat itself is actually pretty decent in this game when it comes to it, but in general, it's a bit too fast. Like, that's not gonna lie, just the way it is. So what we're gonna do is kind of tank our frame rate a little bit to hopefully slightly playable levels and go from there. And this is essentially the reason why you should be playing with a capped 60 at all times. So as you can see, the combat now actually is pretty decent, and considering this game is a prequel to the New Order, then it's kind of shares the same combat mechanics when it comes to dual wielding and stuff like this. But I don't know, maybe and perhaps it is just me who is just too old now to enjoy insanely fast Twitch shooter experience, which is, you know, essentially against my better judgment, but fluid 60 is still better than completely chaotic 300 or 200 frames we were getting before. So that is just my personal opinion. As you can see, even if we go down below 60 frames, like currently 35, you can see how the game physically by itself just slows down, which again is not ideal, hence one of the reasons why you should be keeping this game at 60 frames and just enjoy the way it's supposed to be played, unless you can find a workaround where, you know, you can have it all essentially and not worry about anything else too much.
Kessler knows something.
So yeah, just to drive the point home, which I believe I've done already, even 2 times. Anti-aliasing, we're at 120 frames, and there you go, exactly the same. So, I mean, if your reaction time is able to cope with this, be my guest. I'm not gonna say anything in regards to that, but yeah, overall it's just I would not recommend, but you know, you do you. Like, that's entirely up to yourselves how you want to play this. And if you enjoyed this type of fast-paced combat, you know, be my guest. So yeah, that was just a very quick comparison, or, you know, kind of quick fly through in regards to this game. And if you like it, leave a comment down below. If you know a better workaround for having high frame rate but the game ticks on its actual timing so it doesn't break animations and the game speed, please do let me know. And perhaps you will see me playing this vanilla version on Twitch as usual, which I usually do, because if I enjoy good old shooters, this probably is one of the best, not the best, not the worst, but one of the good shooters that you can actually just immerse yourself and have fun, really. So that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Over and out.